praises to the Most High. We are live. Shalom. Peace be unto you. I want to begin by giving, of course, all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in the name of His Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Welcome to the Sanctuary of Saints, where our mission is to develop and mature the children of God while building a self sustainable community. Though being inside the sanctuary is strictly for the children of God, I encourage all people to listen that they may live, mature, and one day be of service to the Most High through His people. So we are moving right along in our series, Woman, Thou Art Loosed. All right, Woman, Thou Art Loosed. This series is for the purpose of awakening the daughters of Zion through the scriptures to mature them, right? To grow and develop them and to make sure that they have guidance in the issues of life that they face consistently, walking in the faith. All right. So definitely want to go back and check out from the intro to where we are now. As I've said before, and I'll continue to say over the next couple of weeks as we conclude the series, this is a building block. Okay, these classes are building blocks. They're a ladder that will ultimately lead you to a virtuous woman, to being the virtuous woman that the Bible talks about, right? So now we are at a lesson called The Beauty of a Woman. The Beauty of a Woman. This class this was a difficult class to put together. It was difficult because of the things that I had going on in my personal life, right? But it was also difficult because it's such a broad topic, such a rangy topic that again, I could have made this one as last week's class two classes. So it was difficult to try to put all things into a lesson and make all the points that I need to make on this topic, right? So it was difficult, and I was up, to the early hours of this morning, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, putting things together, deciding what to leave out and what to add in. So that's what I mean when I say this was not an easy class to put together, but Lord willing, it is going to be edifying, right? It's going to be edifying. And so beauty is a foundational principle of the earth, right? Aesthetics, meaning pleasing to the eye. Beauty is something to be desired. Beauty is something to be sought after. Right? Beauty is one of the foundational principles of the entire earth. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11. Let's read that. Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 11.
It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3 and verse 11. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work.
Is it me or did he break up? Okay. Appreciate you, priest. Let me go ahead and read it. So that every man should eat and drink and enjoy. Stop. Aaron, stop. Stop. You were breaking up. Give me a mic check. Mic check. Mic check. He's good now. Okay, let's read it again. They didn't hear you. All right, Tom. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3 and verse 11. Mm-hmm.
Made everything beautiful in his time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end.
So for those that didn't hear on YouTube, that was Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 11. The Lord has made everything beautiful in its time. So when you read Genesis, the first chapter, and Genesis, the second chapter, and the Lord going into everything he made and it being good, that is what this is describing, which is why I made the point to open class to say that beauty is a foundational principle of earth. Beauty is how the earth was made. The earth was made for aesthetics, right? To be aesthetically pleasing to our senses. With that being said, the beauty of a woman in particular is praised throughout scripture, right? Is admired throughout the Bible, and particularly the Songs of Solomon. So we're going to get a few passages of scripture just to build this point that I'm making here, right? Before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of the lesson. Songs of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 15.
Gone. It's the book of Song of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse 15. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes. Behold, thou art fair, my beloved, yea, pleasant. Also our bed is green.
Right. So this is poetry. Right? You got to read Songs of Solomon, Aaron. You got to read it in a poetic voice. Right? So Songs of Solomon is poetry. Now, some of it is, literal, and some of it is hyperbole. But here, when we see that word fair being used, that is the word for beauty. Right? Some people say yapa, yapay in the Hebrew, but that is the word for beauty. Okay. There's actually two words for beauty. One is going into the physical aspect, and then the other word for beauty is going into the ornamental aspects, like the gold, the silver, trinkets, and things of that nature, right? But we see here an ode, if you will, to a fair and beautiful woman. I want to get a few more passages of scripture just to show you all this concept of the beauty of a woman being praised. Right? So you see very descriptive language that we just read there. Read chapter 2, verse 13, the same book.
Come. This the book of Song of Solomon, chapter 2 and verse 13. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grape give a good smell.
Oh, that was
Arise.
Salaki. 1 second. Go to chapter 4, verse 1. Excuse me.
Solomon 4 and verse 1.
You're
Behold,
not on YouTube yet.
thou
We
art
can't hear
fair.
you. Mm-hmm.
Salaki, can you hear me now?
All right. On YouTube, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Come. Behold, thou art fair. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. Thy hair is as a flock of goats, the appear from Gilead. Thy feet
Read verse
like a
7.
flock of sheep. Verse 7. Thou art all fair, my love. There is no spot in thee.
Mm-hmm.
Come with
So
me
stop
from
right there.
Lebanon to my
I might have you stop reading because you're having some technical difficulties on both ends. That's okay. So we see in these passages of scripture, Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, Songs of Solomon, chapter 4. You can read Songs of Solomon, chapter 7, and you'll hear descriptive language of a beautiful woman, right? And you will hear that, right? We're going to keep it PG, but you would hear descriptive language going into the fairness of a woman. The point that I'm building upon is that the beauty of a woman is praised throughout scripture, directly and indirectly. Beauty is beneficial and advantageous for a woman. I'm going to go to the book of Job. We go to the book of Job, chapter 42. Job chapter 42, verse 25. Actually, there's no verse 25. Where did I want? I want verse 22. Okay, in verse 15. I'm sorry. 42 and verse 15. It says, and in all the land were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them inheritance among their brethren. Okay. So this is, of course, the conclusion of the story of Job, but he had very fair daughters. So we see that beauty was judged as well. We can see, okay, this woman is fair in comparison to other women. We can see that there. So we see that this is a thing throughout scripture. These are a couple of examples where they were so fair that they were actually given an inheritance among their brethren. Right? So beauty can afford you things, right? Physical possession. It is beneficial and advantageous to be considered beautiful or fair, right? So now, with that being said, I want to move forward. I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 12 and verse 4. Genesis chapter 12 and verse 4. The next point is that you want to write down that your beauty as a woman, you should maintain it. As a woman, you should maintain yourself. Now, of course, this kind of beauty that the Bible talks about is twofold. It's genetics, of course, that plays a part into your beauty. And then, of course, your own maintenance. I'm going somewhere with this. We're going to talk about obviously physical beauty, and then we're going to talk about spiritual beauty in the latter half of class. Okay? So now, while beauty is, some people would say, in the eye of the beholder, beauty in scripture is subjective, or excuse me, is objective, right? It's not subjective, it's objective. We see women being called fair, and we see women being called beautiful, and in comparison to other women. We see decrees from kings sent out to go and find the what? Fairest women in all the land and have them come and things of that nature. And we will touch on that in class. So it is actually objective. And while there is a physical or genetic aspect to beauty, there's also maintenance that I want to talk about briefly. All right. Maintaining yourself. Go to, let's try this one more time. Genesis chapter 12 and verse 4. Let's try to hear you read on.
Gone. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 12 and verse 4. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran.
Mm-hmm.
And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came.
So I want you to notice the age here. Abram is 75 years old when they leave. Right? So Sarah, she is 10 years younger than Abram. I'm going to prove this. Go to Genesis chapter 17, verse 17.
Come on, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 17 and verse 17.
Mm-hmm.
Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear?
Right. So we see that Sarah is 90. That would be 10 years younger than Abram. So when he was 75, that means at the time, this is our account that we're in, then that means she would be what? 65. She'd be 65 years old in Genesis 12. Now, I want you to go to Genesis 12 in verse, let's go to verse 11.
Gone. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 12, and verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon.
I know that thou art a what?
Fair woman to look upon.
Right. Beautiful. Read.
Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me.
Mm-hmm.
But they will save thee alive.
Read.
Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for my sake, and my soul shall live because of thee.
Read.
And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair,
That she was what?
very fair.
This 65-year-old woman, she wasn't looked at as like a 65-year-old woman. You know how you have these like social media influencers and they're like looking really great at 55 and 65 years old. And it's like, well, she looks great for 65. It's like, no, Sarah didn't look great for 65. She just looked great, period. Right? At 65 years old. These are the kinds of women that our foremothers are. So, of course, as their daughters, you would also be fair by and large in this way. Some of you all need to just simply maintain and take care of yourself. You need to be the best version of yourself if you want to be considered like this at this age here. All right, so a lot of we've covered the rest of the story from different angles, but I wanted to go here to highlight that Sarah, right, whose daughters ye are, the scripture says, she was considered fair at 65, very fair among all women. So I just want to talk about maintenance for a second. A lot of times, you women, when you come into this truth, or when you get married and things like that and settle down, you use that as a reason and as an excuse to let yourself go. You need to maintain yourself. As we move forward in this class, you will actually see how beauty, right, is your power. It is your strength, right? Like men's strength is authority, right? Raw physical strength, if you will, prowess, athleticism. Yours is beauty. So something that you need to recognize, and you want to maintain that as long as possible. Okay, as long as possible. Beautiful women don't have to say much to get ahead in life. This is something that you can see, right? For example, on OnlyFans. This is not righteous, by the way. So I'm speaking worldly and carnally right now, but you see OnlyFans and you see these beautiful women making millions of dollars just showing their beauty. They don't have to say a lot or much. And then when we hear them talk, what do we mostly say about them? They're a lot of times these girls are not that bright. Right? Now, I'm not saying you should be this kind of woman. You should not be that kind of woman. And we will talk about that kind of woman later in class. Nevertheless, for the sake of this point, maintain yourself. You need to be doing regular walking and exercises and stretches um, you know, your face, creams and whatever other things that you use to exfoliate the skin, things of that nature, you want to do that for life. It is something that should be a regular habit for you. All right, so I do want to make that point. There's other scriptures, obviously, that I could pull, but for the sake of time, I think you all understand. As I just said before, the beauty of a woman is her strength. Okay. In fact, it is said to be the most powerful force outside of the Most High. I want to read for you guys something. Beauty in the Bible is said to be the strongest force on the earth outside of the Most High. I'm going to read for you. I'm going to read this passage. First Esdras chapter 4. First Esdras chapter 4. And I'm going to read verse 13. Then the third who had spoken of women, actually, let me go ahead and give some context. First Esdras chapter 3, verse 5. I'm going to give you some context. First Esdras chapter 3 and verse 5. Let every one of us speak a sentence. He that shall overcome and whose sentence shall seem wiser than the others, unto him shall the king Darius give great gifts and great things in token of victory, as to be clothed in purple and to drink in gold and to sleep upon gold, and a chariot with bridles of gold, and the head tire of fine linen, and a chain about his neck. And he shall sit next to Darius because of his wisdom, and he shall be called Darius, his cousin. So these are three of the bodyguards of the king, and they have an agreement amongst one another to say wise sentences and let the king hear them and determine whose sentences were the wisest. And whoever is the wisest would be promoted to great honor. Okay. So just to give you some backdrop, you should read that. Great story for other reasons. But I just want to make this point here. Jumping down to verse 8. And then everyone wrote his sentence, sealed it, and laid it under King Darius, his pillow, and said that when the king is risen, some will give him the writings, and of whose side the king and the three princes of Persia shall judge that his sentence is the wisest, to him shall the victory be given as was appointed. The first wrote, wine is the strongest. The second wrote, the king is the strongest. The third wrote, women are strongest. But above all things, truth beareth away the victory. All right, so these were the three sentences, right, that these wise individuals came and brought to the king. So we're about to figure out whose sentence was wisest. The lesson will lend to you the answer. What is the strongest? So I'm just going to skip past the other two's breakdowns, and you can read that on your own. I'm going to just skip to the third breakdown, which is women is the strongest and the truth. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to First Esdras chapter 4 and verse 13. Then the third, who had spoken of women and of the truth, this was Zerubbabel, began to speak. O ye men, it is not the great king, nor nor the multitude of men, neither is it wine that excelleth. Who is it then that ruleth them? Or who hath lordship over them? Are they not women? Women have borne the king and all the people that bear rule by sea and land. Even of them came they, and they nourished them up that planted the vineyards, from whence the wine cometh. These also make garments for men. These bring glory unto men, and without women cannot men be. Yeah, and if men have gathered together gold and silver or any other goodly thing, do they not love a woman? which is comely and favor and beauty? And letting all those things go, do they not gape and even with open mouth fix their eyes fast on her? And have not all men more desire unto her than unto silver or gold or any goodly thing whatsoever? A man leaveth his own father that brought him up in his own country and cleaveth unto his wife. I want to stop right there. That is what you get the understanding of a man leaving or cleaving to his wife and leaving his father and his mother and becoming one flesh in Genesis. I believe that's the what? Third chapter. Okay, this is what that's going into. But so far, the breakdown is women are the strongest over wine and over kings because wine and kings are subject to women. And women have brought about the men on the earth. Very good point. And that men will give up all they have for the beauty of a woman. That's what we've just read so far. But I'm going to continue on. Verse 21, he sticketh not to spend his life with his wife, and remembereth neither father, nor mother, nor country. By this also ye must know that women have dominion over you. Do ye not labor and toil and give and bring all to the woman? Yeah, a man taketh his sword and goeth his way to rob and to steal, to sail upon the sea and upon rivers, and looketh upon a lion and goeth in the darkness. And when he hath stolen, spoiled, and robbed, he bringeth it to his love. So he's continuing on to say, although that men do have the authority and they do with that authority what they will, it's ultimately for a woman. It's ultimately to go back to a woman, to impress a woman, right? To make that woman smile, to make that woman happy, right? And a beautiful one, obviously. Reading on. Wherefore a man loveth his wife better than father or mother. A man loves his wife better than father or mother. He's willing to give up everything, leave his father and mother, go clear across the earth for a woman, right? So father and mother gets replaced by woman in a man's life. Reading on. Yeah. Many there be that have run out of their wits for women and become servants for their sakes. So, although women don't have the physical raw power to subdue men and make them do what they want them to do that way, they're able to do it through what? Their presence, their beauty, which is why I said that a woman's beauty is her greatest strength on a physical level, right? And on a spiritual level, as we'll get to. Reading on. Many also have perished and have erred and sinned for women. See that? So men perish and we sin, i.e., David, Bathsheba, over women. We go crazy and irrational for women, is what the text is saying. We do things that we should not do. I saw a meme on social media, and it was a good meme, right? But excuse the language. It's as niggas go broke. Niggas spend all their time getting money to go broke, proving to broke girls that they not broke. Right? That's what we do. That's what this is saying right here in the Bible. It's biblical. And we can observe it even in 2025. That's what that's saying. You're going out of your wits' end. You go to the mall and you buy your fit and you smell nice and things like that to go to the club, buy bottles, right? But rent is due next week and you still haven't made that money yet. But you did it to go to the club, find a beautiful girl to impress and show that you have something to offer. That's going out of your wits end. And we see this happening all the time. Women are the strongest. Reading on, verse 28. And now, do you not believe me? So you should believe at this point, right? Is not the king great in his power? Do not all regions fear to touch him? Yet did I see him and Apami, the king's concubine. So this is a concubine. This is not even like one of the wives. Concubines are lesser wives in the Bible, right? They are wives without inheritance, right? They are wives without inherited rights. That is the difference between a concubine and a wife in Scripture. So this is a concubine. This is not even a woman that has fully inherited rights. She's not considered a full wife, right? Well, a wife with full benefits, if you would. I should say that. Reading on. The daughter of the admirable Barticus sitting at the right hand of the king, and taking the crown from the king's head, and setting it upon her own head. She also struck the king with her left hand. So he's saying, bro, you're the king, but this concubine is sitting on your lap, smacking you, and taking your crown off your head. Things that if a man would do would be worthy of death, immediate death, right? It's death immediately. You can't even come into the king's presence without being called. But this concubine was able to sit in the king's lap and slap him and take his crown off his head. Reading on. It says, and setting it upon her own head. So then the concubine, it just keeps getting better. The concubine takes the crown off his head and she says, it kind of looks good on me, right? Women are the strongest. She just did something. I hope you guys are really understanding it. She did something that is not allowed to be done. It's not. It is forbidden to be done. It is decreed that it should not happen. But when all the men see this happening, they don't say that woman should be put to death. Right? Notice they're not saying that because the king allows it. It's his woman. Everybody knows what's going on, right? And why the king is allowing this to happen. Reading on. And yet, for all this, the king gaped and gazed upon her with open mouth. If she laughed upon him, he laughed also. But if she took any displeasure at him, the king was fain to flatter, that she might be reconciled to him again. So basically, this is saying, hey, no matter what she does, you're going along with it. You're gonna laugh at all her corny jokes, right? If she gets upset at something that you do and makes that little face, then all of a sudden you're gonna go out of your way to make sure that you cheer her up again. This is what kings do. So of course, all of us do it. If the king is doing it, then we're doing it as well. This is how women, by and large, treat men. If a man isn't treating you that way, then there's a reason for that. Right? If a man isn't going out of his wits end to do for you, right? There's a reason for that. And that reason most likely has to do with his attraction to you or lack thereof. So that explains when you say in a relationship, well, I remember when you used to do this for me, and I remember when you used to be so romantic, and then you did this. And yes, that was 50 pounds ago. I'm just here to say it. I'm sorry. Right? That was 50 pounds ago. The level of attraction isn't there like it used to be. You don't have that used to level of attraction that you had. It's there, like you used to outline and the figure of it is reminiscent, but it's natural. I'm saying the truth, and this is just the truth of why those kinds of things happen, right? Which is why I said at the beginning of class, you want to maintain yourself as long as possible. These privileges that you see women indulging the king with, they don't go to like not attractive, you know, out of shape women. It doesn't work like that in the Bible. Right? Now we can talk about being politically correct and 2026 and loving the skin that you're in and all of that kind of good stuff, right? It just doesn't, and that's fine, but it just doesn't align with what I see in the Bible. Okay. I see in the Bible something different. If this was something that was on a priority list for them. Okay. And we're going to get to the spiritual aspect so that these things are not conflated. But I just wanted to start by saying, or by making this point here in class, that beauty and the beauty of a woman is foundational, it is strength, right? It is actually the strongest. Now, when you continue to read on in Esdras, he goes into the truth and then he gives praise to the Most High. But basically, his summation was outside of the Most High who have made a woman in this beauty, she is the strongest. Right? So now, with that being said, let's move forward. Beauty can be weaponized. Your beauty can be weaponized, woman. Right? It can be a weapon of war. Go to Numbers chapter 25 and read verse 1 through 3.
Gone. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verses 1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel.
So this is off the heels of, we spoke about how the prophet was, well, he was a prophet of Moab. He was called to curse Israel, but the Lord turned the curse into a blessing. And so this is what they did afterwards. So after that wouldn't work, they got Israel to sin, right? Which we know our sin brings about a curse, which would accomplish his same end. So what he did was they sent the women. So what you just read was talking about sexual parties and orgies, excuse me, which were ritual practices to their gods. Modern day Diddy parties, if you will. What you see when you see, and this is a sidebar for the teaching moment, when you see these things in the media about Diddy parties and all the baby oil, and we're making fun of it, but what the Spirit was saying to me is, no, these are rituals. Those parties, those acts are rituals to different deities, ancient rituals. And that's what this was here. So this is talking about how the women of Moab seduced the men of Israel to worship and join themselves unto another god through sexual, orgies and parties. That's what it means. That's what it means when it says they committed whoredom with the daughters of Moab, group sex parties unto their gods. That's how you can get a brother to say, "I'm joining under Baal for now." Right? That's how you can get it. Because then when you read it, you say, "Why would the Lord just saved them? Why would they join themselves unto Baal? Baal Peor is our God now after this great night or two or three or however long it was." Right? And the men of Israel is like, man, we don't gotta take care of them. They just say they want to come. It's just a ritual. It's just ain't no dowries and nothing. We're not talking to no fathers. It's just a sex party, right? And this angered the Lord, of course. But the point is, it was used, the beauty of a woman was used as a weapon of war against the righteous. Very powerful. I'm just kind of just expounding upon the point in First Esdras. And of course, people had to die because of it. So it can be used as a weapon of war. Go to now, go to Judith chapter 10. All right. And you're going to read, actually, let me get there. 10, verse 1. Of course, we read this last week. I believe we went into Judith. But beauty can also be used to save a nation. It can be used to save other individuals. Read that.
Go on. This is the book of Judith, chapter 10 and verse 1. Now after that she had ceased to cry unto the God of Israel, and had made an end of all these words, she rose where she had fallen down, and called her maid, and went down into the house in the which she abode in the Sabbath days, and in her feast days, and pulled off the sackcloth which she had on, and put off the garments of her widowhood, and washed her body all over with water, and
Mhm.
anointed herself with precious ointment, and braided the hair of her head, and put on a tire upon it, and put on her garments of gladness, wherewith she was clad during the life of Manasseh, her husband.
Right. So this is Judith. Notice the difference in attire, though, right? Because now we're kind of transitioning in class. She's going, of course, for the salvation of her people. All right. We covered this last class. But she took off the attire of her widowhood, meaning what? Women wear garments for the purposes that they want to achieve. We can see here clearly, so we can stop playing this game with, like, well, I'm just wearing my clothes because I like how I look in them, and it doesn't have anything to do with other people seeing me, and I'm not trying to impress anybody. That is not how it works. Okay. You put on garments for attention. You put on garments based on the occasion that you are attending and things of that nature. So the purpose of the things that you wear is to invoke a response, right? Physically from those that see you. Okay. Period. Whether it is a sexual response, right? Which is what we're going to talk about. That is a whoredom, the spirit of whoredom that our women have and they use the beauty for, right? But if you want to be modest and you don't want to be seen so much, if you're not trying to flaunt, then there's going to be a different kind of attire that you wear, right? You will be wearing the attire that Judith is wearing, widow's attire, right? Sackcloth. It's not quote unquote sexy or aesthetic, right? It's not revealing, if you will. Okay. But it says here that she changed her garments and she put on the garments that she wore when her husband made her happy. So now we know that, women's attire is connected to their emotional state as well. Right? We know what the little red dress means on Friday nights when you go to the club. Right? After you just argued with your quote unquote man. We know these things. Men know these things, and they are evident in scripture. Keep reading.
Gone. And she took sandals upon her feet, and put about her bracelets, and her chains, and her rings, and her earrings, and all her ornaments, and decked
Mm-hmm.
herself bravely, to
Mm-hmm.
allure the eyes of all men that should see her.
To do what?
To allure the eyes of all men that should see her.
You see that? So women dress to allure the men to see. You do that, right? It's a normal thing. That's why you're putting on a dress. And that's why brothers get mad when you are their woman and you go out the house half naked. What do they say? Who are you trying to impress? Ain't that what they say? Who do you want to see? Right? It's clearly somebody. because you're showing everybody. And then you say, I ain't trying to be seen. I'm just trying to be comfortable. That is a lie. All right. Whether blatantly or unconsciously or subconsciously, it is a lie. Okay. Whether you are saying it to deceive the, the person you're with or deceiving yourself and because I do believe that some women think that you can just go outside in these like, you know, booty shorts and bonnets, right? And then the thing about that is the women that do that, since they are like the bottom of the barrel, then the next woman who's like a little bit better than that, then they say, well, this is fine because at least I don't look like this, right? So then we just got the whole game messed up because no, that woman still is dressed crazy and immodest as well, right? Dressed as a whore as well. I digress. But the point here is to demonstrate that the women's appearance, your beauty, your appearance, what you put on, what you wear, all of that matters. All of that attracts men. All of that can shift a situation. Keep reading.
Verse 5. Then she gave her maid a bottle of wine and a cruse of oil, and filled a bag with parched corn and lumps of figs, and with fine bread. So she folded all these things together and laid them upon her.
Mm-hmm.
Thus they went forth to the gate of the city of Bethulia, and found standing there Ozias and the ancients of the city, Cabris and Charmis.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw her, that her countenance was altered,
You
and
said what?
her countenance was altered.
You said her countenance was altered. You know how when you see these girls and they got the makeup challenges and then they look like a doll with the makeup on, right? Beautiful, stunning, right? Runway model. And then when you take the makeup off, it's like good night. Catfish. That's what it's called. Catfish. It was like what she did with herself, like, she didn't get cake face because she was beautiful, right? So that's not what it's saying. It's talking about the way that she braided her hair, the earrings that she decided to putting on a little, lip gloss, washing her face with that special ointment, right? No, she didn't have any makeup on. But it's when she did that, it altered her countenance, right? So you can, woman, you might not think, well, nobody's called me beautiful. And you can alter your countenance by taking care of yourself. All right, so I just wanted to make that point. But it says that her countenance altered and her apparel changed. So all of these things she did, all right, for the purpose of alluring men, getting them to relax their guard, and then, of course, slaying the captain of our enemies in his tent. Okay. And so, with that, she got Israel a great victory. All right. So, the beauty of a woman can be used in warfare, right? To deliver and or to destroy. Another, just to go to another worldly example, you see what? Helen of Troy. Remember? That's where you get the whole Trojan horse story. That was all of that happened over a woman. Okay? A woman deciding to leave her man, right? To leave her king. And it's not going down like that. He brought his men across, he brought millions across the whole world. We got the story of Achilles. All of that happened because what? Women's beauty is the strongest. Huh? So now let's go to Let's go to Sirach chapter 36, verse 22. Sirach 36 and 22.
God, this is the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 36 and verse 22. The beauty of a woman cheereth the countenance,
Mhm.
and a man loving nothing better.
You see that? And that's why women's beauty is also the strongest, right? Because even though men are the strongest and they're in authority, they love nothing better than a woman, right? So it cheers the countenance. You don't have to say much, right? Again, you can just make a, that's the saying, right? You're a sight for sore eyes. Isn't that a saying in the world? Right? You're a sight for sore eyes. You can just brighten up the day by just coming home, having your man come home. You look nice, you smell nice, right? You fix yourself up. You can cheer up his day. He had a bad day at work, right? Boss got on his nerves, okay? Things like that. And instead of coming home to like arguing and nagging in a dirty house, if you just got yourself together and look nice, his mood would change. You can change a man's mood by presenting yourself in such a way. So I wanted to just articulate this, with different examples that we see in scripture. All right. Let's go to Sirach chapter 5 and verse 12. Chapter 5, verse 12.
God, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 5 and verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
If thou hast understanding, answer thy neighbor. If not, lay thy hand upon thy mouth.
All right, that's not what I needed. I was looking for something else. That was 5 and 12.
God,
All right, let me see here. I'm looking for. Go to go to chapter 40. Actually, no, let me see what 9 and 9 says. Go to 9 and 9.
God, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 9 and verse 9. Sit not at all with another man's wife,
Mm-hmm.
nor sit down with her in thine arms,
Mm-hmm.
and spend not thy money with her at the wine, lest thine heart incline unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction.
Right. So this is what happens when women use their beauty, right, to allure men. Men have to now get wisdoms, right, written on their behalf. Hey, we know that there's beautiful women everywhere. Sometimes they're married and they don't care and they don't show you, and they will dress and present themselves in a way that will cause you to incline yourself to her. Now we get a warning against adultery. This is where the beauty, I want to kind of shift the class to talk about the whoredom aspect, if you would, right? The whoredom aspect. Now, what a lot of women do is you utilize your beauty. This is what has become culture now. You utilize your beauty to get the man that you want, right? To get out of the man that which you want, that we just read in the Bible that you do. Right? So I don't have to just make that up and say you use your body, you use your beauty to get the things out of a man that you want because we read it in the Bible. So it's okay. You don't have to say it's not true. It's true, right? And it's fine. But the issue becomes when you do that to more than one man. When you do that to more than one man, it becomes whoredom in the Bible. Right? And I know that we have a culture that is contrary to that understanding, but the Bible has a culture, right? And that is what we're going to focus on here at Sanctuary of Saints. Okay, so now we have to get into the whoredom aspect of it, the negative aspect of a woman's beauty. Go to, I want to say 42. No, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. I want to get the next one dealing with that topic for the men. I want to get some wisdom for the men. Bear with me. I thought I put that one in here. Y'all heard me say I was having some issues with what scriptures I wanted to add. Sirach chapter 25 and verse 21.
Con, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 25 and verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
Stumble not at the beauty of a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and desire her not for pleasure.
You see that? And so now we see another wisdom saying, don't stumble at the beauty of a woman, right? Don't desire her for pleasure. Now, it's not saying you shouldn't desire a woman for pleasure. It's saying you should not stumble at the beauty of a woman in the desire for pleasure. Right? That's the stumbling part that it just described. Right? The pleasure aspect, meaning you shouldn't just be gazing at a woman and just going straight to what you would want to do with it. Right? You shouldn't be doing that for several reasons. Right? But mainly because, keep reading. I think it tells you.
Con,
Is there more?
a woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach.
Mm-hmm.
A wicked woman abateth the courage, maketh an heavy countenance, and a wounded heart.
You see that? Because these women that are wicked are going to ultimately be to your destruction. It goes into in the next couple of verses how, hey, you don't know what kind of woman you're getting into if you're just desiring her for pleasure. You don't know if she's the kind of woman that you want to deal with. You're not considering your own situation financially. This is actually going into that because the next sentence goes into a woman maintaining her husband. So now you desire this woman because she looks good and things of that nature, but you haven't even considered how you're going to take care of her, right? These are things and wisdoms in scripture. And now your quote unquote marriage comes into problems. And then you gaze upon this beautiful woman. She's beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, she's totally wicked. Right? She doesn't have a beautiful spirit. And then that is to the destruction of your own life. So you can have a beautiful woman on the outside, right? And then on the inside, she's very ugly. And then that is going to subtract from your life. Right? It's going to be a subtraction from your life. The next chapters over in Sirach 26, 25, and 26 goes into that aspect. That's what women do for men. Either they are going to add to your life, add days to your life, or they're going to subtract days from your life, which is also why women's beauty is the strongest. Okay. Which is why I am taking my good, sweet time. All praises to the Most High. With that being said, I think we understand that. Go to Sirach chapter 26, verse 9.
God, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 26 and verse 9.
Uh-huh.
The whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and eyelids.
You see that? So now this beauty, right? You're now using it for whoredom, talking about haughty looks and eyelids. Right? That's what that's going into. Now we have an understanding of that modern day. All of these flappy little things that they wearing on their eyes and batting their eyes, taking pictures like this, and And what do we say about those women? For the streets. That's what this is going into. All of what we see today is biblical, right? And you're known by it. We know that you're for the streets. So now there's a different game that begins to be played between men and women. If we know you're for the streets, right? We're gonna not treat you with the respect, right? That changes how we see you. We see you as an object of our affection, but now we begin to look at you in the way that violates the last wisdom. Right? That's what happens. We violate the wisdom of Sirach because we see you are like this. You are presenting yourself that way. And then that creates perpetual problems. Baby mamas, baby daddies, broken homes, bad children, children who you look at and then you say, who raised you? Right? So we have these kinds of families perpetually amongst Black and Hispanic people. Right? Keep reading.
God, if thy daughter be shameless, keep her in straitly,
Mhm.
lest she abuse herself through overmuch liberty.
Right. So shameless meaning if your daughter is not shy to get in men's face and shake their hand and things of that nature. If you see that she's super friendly, I see another thing on social media. It says when your daughter has a naturally flirty personality and she got to kind of keep tapping the daughter, hey, you're doing it. If you have that kind of daughter, then the Bible instructs you to keep her in straitly. She's dealing with something there. You don't want to expose her to that. Read on.
God, watch over an impudent eye, and marvel not if she trespass against thee.
Mm-hmm.
She will open her mouth
Wait,
as
stop
a
right there. So this is also a characteristic why we can kind of what you can say prejudge or judge a book by its cover, so to speak. Right? There are times where we can judge a book by its cover, but it says right here, it says, "Watch over an impudent eye, and marvel not if she trespass against me." Meaning, you should expect a shameless daughter, right? To transgress against you, to be disobedient. If she's doing all of that, that's usually connected with disobedience to what the parents are instructing. So don't be surprised. Well, I never knew she would do something like that. Yes, she would. If you see her in other dudes' faces and things like that, when you tell her, hey, you gotta go here and you can't go there, and then she ended up going there when she should have been here, right? New clothes, outfits. Y'all see him in the TV shows, right? And then you say, man, I never suspected that. I didn't think that she would. The Bible is giving you game on how to know if your children is going to be out there in the streets not representing your word the correct way. These are little telltale signs. Go ahead and keep reading.
God. She will open her mouth as a thirsty traveler when
Mhm,
he hath found a fountain, and drink of every water near her.
mhm.
By every hedge will she sit down, and open her quiver against every arrow.
I don't have to break that down too much, right? She will be out here for the streets. That is what she will be doing. If you have a shameless daughter, when you tell her, hey, go here and do this, when she leaves your presence, when she's outside the house, she's not at soccer practice. You understand? That's not where she is. Or she might be at the boys' soccer practice. That's what this is saying. Okay. So this is the culture that we have. We have now a culture of whoredom. Okay. We have a culture now of boyfriend and girlfriend. And again, the game is messed up because we have whores that will sleep with men on the first date, but we have whores that will sleep with men after hello or a cash app, right? We have girls that will do that. So then the game is messed up because the next level of girls that they hang with that say, no, I don't think I should do it that bad. They now think it's okay to do it boyfriend by boyfriend every 3 to 6 months, right? Or every 6 months to a year. Girl, I'm old school. Not now. A 90-day rule is considered the old school. You see, you see how the game is messed up? That's for them too, young lady. Right? But a lot of young ladies don't realize that. They actually think they're a step up. They think that, hey, I'm good. I'm not a whore. They don't think that they're a whore. So when you're explaining to them about the concept of intercourse being the consummation of a marriage, it's just like, whoa, wait, what? But I'm a good girl though. I've only had sex with men I consider to be dating or my boyfriend. No, in the Bible, it's still whoredom, right? But it's just not as bad as the ones that you're seeing. Okay. You actually have a chance probably of being reconciled and repaired, right? A man might actually, a decent man might actually take you seriously if you've moved in that way. So you've been afforded a little bit better opportunities than the all out whores in which multiple guys can sit into a room and say, yep, I had her too, right? You're just not on that level, right? You're just a step above, but it's not where the Lord wants you to be. So I don't want you to confuse your wisdom with the Bible's wisdom as it pertains to dealing with whoredom. Right? You are supposed to get it right the first time. And then when your husband passes, the man that you lay down with, if that man passes, you can then go and be another man's wife. That is how it naturally works. Okay, that is what we have to get back to as a nation when it pertains to our women, unless we have whoredom, which creates, again, broken homes, relationships, terrible children. I pray that you all understand. Okay, so moving on. Moving right along here. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 3, verse 16. Read that. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 16. The punishment for this whoredom.
God, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 3, and verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes,
Mm-hmm.
walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet.
The Lord is describing the current Black and Hispanic woman right now, walking around, mincing, stretch forth necks. That's that whole shake your neck, wave your finger mentality, right? That's what the Lord is describing now. There's a prophecy dealing with the whoredom that we are currently living in right now, right? We, meaning the daughters of Zion. Keep reading.
God, therefore the Lord will smite with the scab of the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord will discover their secret parts.
Mm-hmm.
In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls, and
Mm-hmm.
their round tires like the moon,
Mm-hmm.
the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings,
Uh-huh.
the rings, the nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel, and the
Mm-hmm.
mantles and the wimples, and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils.
Uh-huh.
And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a
Mm-hmm.
girdle rent, Salakia, and instead of a girdle, a rent,
Mm.
and instead of well set hair, baldness.
Mm.
and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty.
And this is already beginning to take place now. What we just read was the Lord taking away the beauty from the daughters of Zion by and large, right? So I don't want you all to sit here and say, well, hey, I'm beautiful, right? This don't look like me. Well, it might not look like you yet, but it's also looking like a lot of our sisters right now, right? When you look at our sisters' state of what their hair is going through, all the breakage and the shrinkage and the you feel like you gotta wear these protective styles, right? Weaves, quick weaves, messing up your head a lot of times, to be honest. These protective styles. And then you take off the wig, and then you got as much hair, you ain't got as much hair as I got. Or it's little patches, right? Or it's thinning out in some places. And then he said he's going to take away, when he goes into the tinkling ornaments and things of that nature, he's going into how he's going to destabilize you, right? Your money, your resources, so that you're not going to get manicures and pedicures and all of the stuff that you do to make yourself beautiful. He's going to remove that. He's going to take away all of your your proud ornaments and things like that through the economy, because you're going to go broke and have to sell it, right? And then he goes into the odor. I'm starting to see this actually happen right now. The odor that a lot of our women are dealing with in their private areas, right? Just seen another social media. This is what happened on social media. The Lord got me on social media for a reason, for these lessons. Seen another social media video viral. All of the videos that I'm talking about, social media, they go viral. There's a little boy, he's maybe 8 years old. His mom, she got them little coochie cutters on, excuse my language, and a little sports bra on, posing in front of the camera, in front of the sun like women. And then the little boy said, Mom, what's that smell? And she said, she's on camera, so she's embarrassed, right? What's that smell? And she says, oh, that's the plant. Her answer was, these are the plants outside. They're in the house, door closed, window closed. It's the plants outside. And he said, oh, it's the plants outside. And little kids, oh, I thought that was you smelling like that. I thought that was you. Kid know what he's doing because he know he on camera. And then the woman, of course, she gets upset. Yes, it's you. It's you, and it's Isaiah. It's the Lord talking to you. Right? You got that quiver out for every man to see, right? Well, IUIC said it stank, it stank, it stank. Right? Y'all remember that? That is coming to pass. Right? And it's a combination of things. It's the food that you're eating, right? You're drinking all of this alcohol, you're not working out, right? You smell terrible out here. I smell a lot of y'all walking around here, just in everyday life, grocery store, gym. Right? I'm not saying I smell good at the gym, right? But I'm seeing that it's going to start taking away your beauty. It says what? And goes into that girdle. So it goes into your shape, right? It goes into how you're going to become more and more out of shape, right? Especially around your waist area. That's what all women want. That's what men like to see. Well, you like to see that hourglass shape. That's what your girdles and things like that are for. That's going to become undone. Right? And what do we see? We see a lot of what black women are obese. Look up those statistics. Black and Hispanic women. This is the Lord rebuking you for your whoredom. This is the Lord rebuking you in your 30s for what you did in your late teens and your 20s. Right? Sleeping with all the boys in college parties. Now your hair is thinning out. Right? It's the Lord's rebuke. I just read it for you. Right? So there are consequences for these actions. The Lord can take away your beauty, right? So I want to teach that point there. With that being said, let's transition to the last part of class, which is the beauty within. Now, outward beauty is based on genetics and physical keep up or upkeep, rather, and it is what man is captivated by. But the Lord looks at the heart. The Lord looks at the beauty of your heart. Go to 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7.
God, this is the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16 and verse 7. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the
Because
Lord
what?
seeth not as a man seeth,
Mm-hmm.
for man looketh on the outward appearance,
Mm-hmm.
but the Lord looketh on the heart.
You see that? Man looketh at the outward appearance, because that is what we know. But the Lord looketh upon the heart. Okay. So now one thing that I want you guys to notice in the stories that and the women that we have spoken about described as beautiful, all of them have something in common too. They all have in common that you will see that they feared the Lord. They were counted as being a wise and understanding woman, right? Or of a beautiful countenance spiritually. That's what you would notice. So these fair women, they were fair outwardly, but the reason why they get a place in the Bible, the reason why they get mentioned, because there's many fair women in Israel, right? But how many are mentioned is based off of the beauty of their spirit, right? The beauty of their heart. And that's what the Lord is looking at. Now, beauty that we see inwardly, the Lord sees, of course, but men can also see it. Right? That's why we say things like, the I'll just use it like this to be carnal. I'm not that attracted to her, but she got a good personality. Like, don't we say that about some women? Like, she got a good personality. She's cool to chill with. Hey, a lot of men might end up even marrying that kind of woman because her spirit is cool, right? Because her spirit is what? Beautiful. We get along, we vibe. So you might only be a 5 out of 10 on my Richter scale, right? But if your heart is beautiful, that can add you, a couple of points. All right. So we're going to get into what that looks like. Go to Proverbs chapter 11, verse 22. Proverbs 11, verse 22.
God, it's the book of Proverbs, chapter 11 and verse 22.
Uh-huh.
As a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion.
You see that? So I wanted to start here because you can be beautiful on the outside, but if you are ugly on the inside, that's what you look like. That's what you look like to people outside. You know when people say she got a nasty spirit, she got a nasty attitude, right? Imagine what the Lord is saying. Beautiful girl, but she got a terrible attitude. That's like having a fine, rare jewel on a pig, right? And what separates you is what? It said discretion. If you're taking notes, discretion is the beauty of the spirit. Right? Discretion is the beauty of the spirit. So discretion is literally the quality, and I'm reading this from, the Bible dictionary. Discretion is the quality of being judicious, prudent, and circumspect in one's actions and decisions. It involves the ability to discern what is appropriate, wise, and beneficial in various situations. In a biblical context, discretion is often associated with wisdom and understanding, guiding individuals to act in a manner that aligns with God's will and righteousness, aka knowing when and how to move in righteousness. That is what discretion is. Knowing what to say, when to say it. You can only get to this point if you have understood and applied the rest of the series previous to this. Here we talk about discretion. Okay. And that is what the beauty of the spirit is. You want to be this kind of woman. Right? You don't want to be the kind of woman that's always being heard, always has to be heard, always has to be seen, always has to be right. Right? You don't want to be the kind of woman that always has something to say. That is not discretion. You should, again, and I said this before in the previous class, you should be the kind of woman that knows what's going on and that other people can see by your movements that you know, and then they ask you. Have people ask you what's going on, ask you for your input, for example. These are examples of discretion. And a lot of women, they lack discretion because you're not taught that in society. You're taught to say what you feel. You're taught this kind of like feminist mentality that, speak your mind, speak your heart. Don't let anybody, tell you what you can't do. This sort of thinking, right, in Western culture. It is contrary to what the scriptures would suggest a woman should be. So then when we're telling you that a woman should be meek and be humble and quiet, oh, you want me to just be a slave and you want me to submit. You mean you just want to, no, sister, we just want you to align yourself with what we see written in scripture. Okay. And you should want to do that for yourself. Your sisters want you to do that too. Right? Your sisters like dealing with other sisters who are modeled after this. So it's not even like a sister versus male kind of thing. I'm just a male presenting you this perspective. But your other sisters as well, they don't like a woman that is, all the time in drama, all the time loud and obnoxious. Even when they are amongst themselves and they're like that, they get into what all of these cat fights. That's all reality TV shows are. They are women who have no discretion at all, right? Having a good time, drinking and going to different places until it's not a good time because of their discretion, right? Or lack thereof. And then Sally starts arguing with Susie over, mimosas on Tuesday. And then they got to bring in somebody as a third party on a Saturday. And then when Saturday happens, and that's all you're watching on TV, right? And then that begins to infiltrate your spirit and you begin to take on those characteristics, right? Our women need to learn discretion. That's an entire class on its own, right? That you guys need to do your own due diligence in seeking out, right? Breakdowns and things of that nature. I can't touch every single thing, right? But discretion is the beauty of the spirit. Go to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. 1 Timothy 2, verse 9.
God. It's the book of 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 9.
Mhm.
In like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety.
Right. So now Paul is expounding here in this passage of scripture on elements of discretion. Modest dress. Right? Modest dress. There is a story that I skipped, right, for sake of time. We read it last week. All right, Susanna, when you go back and listen to last week's class, you'll recall us reading a passage of scripture that goes into how she was covered. Her body was completely covered because she understood She was beautiful to look upon, and her beauty was reserved for her husband. Right? So that's a point that I want to make in class. Your beauty, sister, once you are married, is reserved for your husband. Right? Or if you're or before you're married, you want to allure a husband, right? With your attire, which is why you shouldn't wear harlot's attire, which is why you should dress modestly. If you want a man to take you seriously, you have to dress accordingly. We've already covered in class a scripture that goes into that, so it's not far fetched. Okay? So you would want to be in attire that will allure the kind of man that you're looking for. If you want a woman, if you want a man that's going to mistreat you, abuse you, right? Toss you to the side, then go outside dressed like a 304. You'll get those kinds of men. Look at Cardi B, right? And her new man, Stephon Diggs. Look at that. She went from one man she was mad at and Offset for infidelity to another serial cheater who got her pregnant after she left her man for quote unquote cheating. And let this be a lesson to you women, right? That man hop out of relationship to relationship, thinking the grass is going to get greener on the other side. You don't, as women, I was telling another young lady this, when you start to have children, right, and the body count begins to stack up, you begin to lose value out here, even in these streets. First of all, you lose value in here, right? But you also lose value on the streets. So now she goes from one millionaire to another millionaire, but he's supposed to be like a better millionaire because he's an athlete and things like that, right? So she goes and she's with him, and this man, Stephon Diggs, is doing his thing, right? This man has 4 children. Well, he impregnates 4 different women, not including Cardi B, within the same year. Talking of like if we're going off of cheating by the modern day standard of cheating, he's been unfaithful to her month by month. Like that's way worse than what she said Offset was doing. Way worse. But now she's got a newborn, so she doesn't know how to divide her time between loving the newborn that she had by this man, right, in her adulterous situation, and then being sad for being in the same situation that she just left out of. And she got 2 other children with the other guy. It's a disaster, everyone. And this is exactly the kind of relationship we see in Israel on all levels. And it is for them. And the Lord hates it. And then there are consequences for it. So we have to be mindful of this thing. So Paul is teaching modesty here, modest dress. Now read that again because I kind of went on for a second.
God. And like men are also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety.
Right. Shamefacedness and sobriety. That's also dealing with the discretion. You're not in every man's face, right? You're not, laughing at everybody's jokes. You're not at the one at the bar, tipsy and loud, things like that. That's what Paul is saying. Hey, don't be this kind of woman. That's opposite of discretion. A woman of discretion, she will know her limits on her alcoholic beverages. She has a couple, cool, right? Discretion. Read.
God. Not with broided hair, or gold, or pearls, or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness.
So stop right there. Now, a lot of women and people in general, they misunderstand this passage of scripture. We just read how Judith arrayed herself in those things. Paul is not teaching that a woman should not array herself and braid her hair and things like that. Right? I taught that you actually should do those things. Paul is saying that Your godliness is not based on those things. Don't confuse the two. Don't confuse your braided hair and your pearls and looking nice on the Saturdays and the gatherings. Don't confuse that with discretion and godliness, right? So, for to give it to a modern day example, right? You know, don't confuse. Actually, no, I won't say that. I'll use some discretion in. I think you guys understand. Go ahead and keep reading.
God. But which becometh women professing godliness with good
Right.
works.
So it says, but you should be adorning yourself as women would who profess godliness with good works. Now he's going into your spiritual beauty. That should be your focus in this truth. That's what he's talking about. Okay. Your godliness doesn't lie in your outward beauty, right? Your godliness and your virtue lies inwardly in your discretion, right? In watching what you say, in watching your behavior at all times, right? In being sober. What verse were you at?
I am at verse, well, now it'll be at verse 11.
Read verse 11.
God. Verse 11. Let the women learn in silence with all subjection.
Mhm. Stop right there. And then it says it's going into learning in silence with subjection. And that's talking about in a church setting again. I made this point a few classes ago, I believe. It's talking about in the context of a church setting because there's order that is established. Right. So, for example, right now, a woman wouldn't be trying to or shouldn't be trying to raise her hand and add to class. Right. So, that is what Paul is going into. That's also dealing with discretion as well. Right. So, you have to understand as a woman, yes, your physical beauty outwardly is extremely important, but even more so important is your inwardly. That's how come when we read in Titus, it goes into the aged woman. I won't pull it again, but we read it before. It goes into the aged woman, teaching the younger women, right, discretion to be chaste, keepers at home. Why? Because while aged women's beauty is what on the decline, they should have an inward beauty that younger women gravitate to. People should be saying she has a beautiful spirit, right, about the older woman. They should still see the beauty in her. Okay? So this is extremely important. Go to First Peter chapter 3 and read verse 1 through 4.
God. It's the book of First Peter chapter 3, starting at verse 1. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands,
Mhm.
that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives,
Read.
while they behold your chaste conversations coupled with fear, whose adorning let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair and of wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel,
Mhm.
but let it be the hidden man of the heart.
Let it be what?
But let it be the hidden man of the heart.
Well, this is what Paul was saying. I believe Peter says it better. He says it cleaner, more thoroughly. So your adorning, right, should be focused on these things of the heart, the discretion, the sobriety, being chaste, being reserved, right? Speaking when speak when spoken to, right? That is what a beautiful spirit looks like. Being helpful to others, speaking wisely when you do speak, encouragement. That is what a beautiful spirit looks like in the Bible. And that is what is going to win you favor in both the eyes of God and man. Even if man doesn't think you're beautiful necessarily on the outside, every man will recognize and accept and be thankful and grateful for your beautiful spirit inside, right? So with that, let's go to Proverbs 31 and 30. You're on mute if you're reading. Proverbs 31, verse 30.
Lock internet is going out. Can you hear me on YouTube?
No, you're muted on YouTube.
Okay. One more time with the verse.
Proverbs 31 and 30.
God. The book of
No, wait, I
Proverbs.
can't hear you on YouTube, so don't read it because you're still muted.
God.
You're unmuted right now. Say something.
Testing on YouTube.
Yeah, go ahead. You can read it.
God. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 31 and verse 21. She is not afraid of the snow
No,
for her house.
Proverbs 31 and 30.
30. Salakia.
Mm-hmm.
Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised.
Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. So beauty is vain, and it's talking about obviously here the outward beauty. It's vain because it fades in time, right? As much as you want to keep it up throughout your life, it does fade. So it's vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, she is going to be praised. The woman that has a what? A beautiful spirit. She fears the Lord. She minds her tongue. She's not hanging with 304s. Hey sister, you don't want to call yourself a 304? Fine. You don't feel like you're a whore? Fine. Stop hanging around them. And then watch how you change. Stop hanging around the ones who you know and acknowledge are whores. That's the fear of the Lord. That's how you begin to cultivate a beautiful spirit. Again, none of these things happen overnight. So as I close class, I would like to um, give a few words for Miss Barbara Helen Thomas. She is a sister that had a beautiful spirit, right? And she passed away. She's affectionately known to myself as Granny. Of course, I've met her family, and they've just suffered, a loss, her loss recently. So I do want to give my condolences. She was a woman that had an extremely beautiful spirit, always helpful. The few times that I encountered her, Aaron as well, he knows a few others as well, always encouraging. So all I ever heard her speak, words of encouragement. I always saw her helping out, with the food and making sure that we were fed when we came down, asking how we were doing and things of that nature. This is the only version I've ever encountered of this woman. And then obviously she was a listener of the class. She listened to the class and, she got edification and oftentimes thanked me for the classes. So I do want to give my condolences and acknowledge her. May she rest in peace and may her soul rise again. We lost a beautiful sister recently. So, with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. Shalom.